Hi, Jose. So we're going to wait 5 more minutes and then we'll begin.
Hey, Ramiro, how are you? Okay, fine.
Right, everybody. So we're going to wait for like 2 minutes more and we'll begin today's class, okay? All right, so we have quite a lot of work to do today. So I'm going to ask Jose and Daniela to turn on your cameras so we can begin. Sweet, thank you. Right, Jose, so we're just waiting for you, and I'm going to start sharing my screen. Okay. Are you there? All right, sweet. So, okay, so yesterday we finished looking at basically all the kinds of questions we can encounter in the listening section. The class before that, we did practice of the lecture and a practice of the conversation. So now we're going to do a class discussion. So this class discussion is on, wait, let me check, I don't remember what topic was. Yes, it's on conservation. So it's actually a pretty interesting one. So, right, so Shadia, please turn on your camera and we can begin. I'm going to start sharing my screen. So let me know if you can all hear it. So we're going to do this one. I'm going to send you the questions, and we're going to give like 6 minutes to solve the lecture. Okay.
Listen to part of a lecture in a class on wildlife conservation.
We're going to continue our unit on endangered species by looking at the dwindling populations of migrating shorebirds and what scientists are doing to help them. Let's take a look at the Delaware Bay specifically. The Delaware Bay is one of the most important places for many species of migrating shorebirds. They travel thousands of miles every spring and fall, and in late May and early June you'll see shorebirds gathered on almost every beach along the Delaware Bay. Having so many birds assembled in one place at the same time, though, it seems like their numbers are fine, but it's sort of deceiving, as we'll soon discover. Consider one bird in particular that's received a lot of attention. Does anybody know which species I'm talking about?
I might. I'm actually from Delaware, and every year the newspapers make a big deal when the red knots arrive at the beaches. Is that it?
Precisely. Red knots get a lot of publicity, and for good reason. In 1990, about 100,000 red knots landed on Delaware Bay beaches. By 2003, the number plummeted to about 12,000.
Did the birds go somewhere else?
That's an excellent question. One that we don't know the answer to yet. But those falling populations did spur scientists to design research projects to determine whether we, humans, that is, if we were responsible, and if there was something we could do to reverse the trend. Now, Marisol, I know you took part in an internship program at the Delaware Bay last summer. Why don't you tell the class a bit about your work?
Sure. Well, the researchers I was working with are trying to find ways to rejuvenate the populations of shorebirds. They captured the birds, weighed them, and measured their wings and beaks.
And can you explain how this project will help the birds?
Well, some biologists were studying avian diseases, viruses that affect birds. They put some of the info into a database that tracks whether certain viruses are limited to particular species or parts of the world. I'm not sure about the measurements.
That's all right. Thank you, Marisol. Generally, researchers put bands on the legs of every bird they study so they can ascertain if the bird returns to the same sites. When they capture birds that have been banded already, the scientists weigh and measure them to see if the birds are growing as expected. Each species weighs a certain amount when it's in peak condition, so by weighing the birds at the midpoint of migration, researchers can learn quite a bit. Now, what would you imagine is a migrating bird's biggest problem when it reaches that midpoint?
Well, with so many birds coming to the same place at the same time, I guess there's a lot of competition for food.
That's right. And in the case of the red knots, scientists have learned that about the time the birds arrive, the horseshoe crab is also coming on shore to lay its eggs. If the horseshoe crabs haven't laid their eggs, the birds have to move on. And this is sad, many die because they don't have the energy reserves to complete their journey. Scientists made a breakthrough helping red knots by linking their population to the horseshoe crab population. After limiting harvests of horseshoe crabs, we're starting to see the red knot population rebound. So we know food supplies affect the migrating shorebird populations. What else would affect them?
Well, there are a lot more people on Earth today. We're taking up a lot more space.
Yes. The other big problem is the lack of suitable resting places for the birds. As we humans require more and more space, we're destroying some of the places where the shorebirds rest. But scientists have had some success helping shorebirds that live year-round in Atlantic coastal regions. Success that may be applicable to migrating birds. For example, the American oystercatcher seemed on the brink of extinction in 2003. Working with environmental groups and government officials, scientists helped oystercatcher populations recover by preserving habitat, controlling predictor populations, and restricting human activities near the birds' nesting sites. These solutions offer promising leads on how to come up with similar strategies to help migratory shorebirds like the red knot.
Okay, perfect. So that was the end of the recording. So what I'm going to do now is send you all the questions for this one. Right. So it's in the chat box. So if you have problems downloading them, let me know. Okay, otherwise, we're going to begin with the countdown. I'm going to give you 6 minutes to solve these questions. It should be more than enough. Okay. If you have any question, let me know. Right, so we have less than 2 more minutes, so let's wrap it up. Right. 15 seconds. So let's finish our attempt. Okay, sweet. So time's up. All right, so I'm going to start sharing the question sheet. And because we're 6 and there are 6 questions, each one of you is going to basically tell me one. So yeah, who wants to go first? Right, no one. We have no volunteers today. Right, so we're going with Jasmine.
Okay, teacher.
All right, so tell me which option did you choose and why did you choose it?
Well, teacher, I choose letter C because
Okay.
um in the image it shows the word red cannot, and also I listen the word horses shoe crabs, and that's why.
Okay, that's a good guess. We have two important keywords there. Does anyone else have a different opinion? Perhaps someone that chose Camila.
Teacher, good evening. I choose the letter A because the conversation was about how people at that place could preserve and do many things to preserve the shorebird population at the Leeward Bay.
Okay, so all right, so both of them are good guesses. Jasmine said option C. Says how researchers discovered the link between red knots and horseshoe crabs, but that was not the main idea. It was one of the supporting ideas near the end. So unfortunately, that's not it. And Camila said option A, how community efforts can preserve shorebird populations at Delaware Bay, which is not necessarily, it's really close, but it's not entirely correct because it's community efforts only. And here we saw the role of researchers and institutes as well. So it's not necessarily just community. So our correct answer actually was option B, because since this was a conservation class, it's basically dealing on how the environmental factors in a region have reduced this population. So I'm going to just share the first 30 seconds of the recording. Give me a second. Right. So it should be this one.
Listen to part of a lecture in a class on wildlife conservation.
We're going to continue our unit on endangered species by looking at the dwindling populations of migrating shorebirds and what scientists are doing to help them. Let's take a look at the Delaware Bay specifically. The Delaware
Okay, so
Bay
as we
is
can
one
hear
of
in
the-
this one, the objective of the lecture was actually the dwindling populations. So yeah, basically dwindling population means reduced population and environmental factors in regions, and they take the case of the Delaware Bay. Okay, so that was a bit tricky because they actually mentioned the scientists in this one, so that's why community one was a bit tricky to have. But yeah, so you have to be really careful about these words here, like community, and for example, this one is just focusing on one detail. Okay. Thank you, Jasmine. Thank you, Camila. Cool. Who wants to do number 2?
Me. I think it's letter C,
Okay. Why?
because the student said that it's a method that used in
Yep.
the
Continue.
it's a method that used in the to count or to have this studies of the health of the bird.
Precisely. So she actually mentions that one of the way that they evaluated the health of these birds, but was by measuring their wingspan. So yep, option C is correct. Did you want to say something, Jose? Okay, no, cool. Sweet. So who wants to do number 3 then? Number 3 is an inference question, so we have to jump to a conclusion. So do we have a volunteer? Okay, no volunteers then. Okay, Daniela, please, could you help us with this one?
I think it's letter A.
Okay, why?
Because the professor said it is a method that helps and knowing if the birds return to a particular place.
Yep. Yeah, so that's what he says. But actually, if you look at option A, how many birds hatch? So that means how many birds are born. Okay, so hatching means basically being born out of an egg. So that was actually not quite what he meant by it. So actually, the correct option was option D, because when they banned these birds, basically what they do is when they capture them again, they can yeah, it's helpful to see how the population is evolving, basically. So yeah, you have to be really careful here. The tricky word was hatch, so they're not actually measuring how many are born. But yeah, no, thank you, Daniel. Cool. Who wants to do the next one? Is it number 4, I think? Yes, number 4. Right, come on, we're a bit shy today. We don't want to participate much.
Can I?
Jose, you want to do it?
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
I think it's letter C,
Okay, why?
because the birds eats the crabs. like default. It's like a default for the journey.
Yeah, but yeah, so I actually, to explain, the level of activity has plunged. So that's, I mean, it sounds like it, but it's actually not. That doesn't necessarily refer to how it plunged. It's more of an indicator. So it's not only measuring how it went down. So actually, in this one, option A is a better example, because he actually used them as a way of explaining basically how it happened and how it has like an environmental effect on the population of the red-knobbed birds, basically. So option A was a bit. So yeah, just be quite careful. So what I'm seeing basically with these practices is that there are some tricky words, and we mentioned those quite a lot yesterday, that there are some tricky parts on this question, especially in the inference and the detail ones, where they added a small piece of detail like this one, for example, that changes the meaning. I mean, most of it is right, but just one word changes the meaning of the statement. So you have to be really careful about this one. Okay, thank you, Jose. And number 5. Shadia, could you help us?
I'm not sure, but I think it's the letter between the letter B or.
Okay, no, I couldn't hear you, but the last part I could. Could you repeat, please? I couldn't hear you too well, so could you repeat it?
It's my computer, it doesn't work. I think is the option between the option B or D. I'm not sure.
B or D?
B or D.
Cool. So both of them are actually really good guess. Which one are you going for?
I think B.
B?
B.
Okay. Yeah, so it was actually option D, because yeah, real changes will come through the intervention of government and not research project. That's not necessarily how he meant. Like, I mean, he does mention that he's a bit skeptic, but what he actually mentions is that research into non-migratory birds can actually benefit migratory shorebirds. So option D was the correct one. So this one, the intervention of the government, was the one that threw it off. So yeah, but it was a really good guess. You were really close. Thank you, Shadi. And we'll close with Karen. I think Karen is the one that we have missing.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but B.
Okay, why?
Because well, I eliminate the others for that. I think that it's more possible.
Okay, so yeah, B, like B like in
Yeah.
donkey, right? Yeah, so for these ones, when they say what does the professor mean when he says this? Having so many birds assembled in one place at the same time, though, it seems like the number are fine, but it's sort of deceiving. So deceiving is the key word in this one. So actually, the one that Jesus. Yeah, I don't know what happened with my laptop, but yeah, no, it's just went to to sleep for a reason. All right, so actually the one that's closer in meaning because of the word deceiving, that's a keyword, is that such high numbers of birds in one place mask the global decline of shorebird populations. Because actually what he means is that if you look at the number of birds, it seems to be fine, right? But because it's deceiving, it can mask the actual situation of the shorebird populations. Right, so actually the correct option was option D. So yeah, so as we can see, actually we all got a bit confused with some of the tricky words and tricky wordings that were introduced into these options. So yeah, just basically what I would suggest is that you I know we were rushing a bit, but actually the average time that it should take you to answer basically all of your questions should be around 30 seconds. So 6 minutes is usually what like a good leeway of time in which you can actually answer all the questions. So yeah, perhaps due to the pressure, you were forced to read things quite fast. So I would suggest that you put a bit more attention to some details and some words that may change the meaning. Okay, so before we go to the next practice recording, do we have any questions, perhaps? Or anyone wants to make a comment? Okay, cool. Yeah, no, it's a bit hard sometimes because when you encounter this kind of practices in which, yeah, you struggle with some things, it may seem quite demotivating because you encounter some problems, but yeah, it's just a matter of practice. The more you practice, the more proficient you're going to get at actually picking up those details. All right, so so I have a lecture and a conversation that we can practice on. So which one do you want to do first? Do you want to do the lecture or the conversation? The conversation is a bit shorter.
Lecture.
Okay, we have one vote for lecture. Is anyone's? Okay, we have 2 for lectures. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again.
Teacher,
Yep.
could you wait 2 minutes or 1 minute, please?
Okay.
Please.
Okay, so we're going to wait a bit for Karen. On the meanwhile, yeah, questions or comments perhaps on the answers. All right, Jose, how many did you get right from all of your guesses?
4.
4 out of 6 is actually pretty good. It's a pretty good number. Sweet. How about you, Camila?
3, teacher.
Okay, 3.
Yes. Not
Right.
so good.
So what was the thing you struggled the most?
I don't know, the tricky words are sometimes the complication in my case.
Yeah, no, it's a bit hard to differentiate them sometimes, but yeah, basically just keep on practicing and yeah, just you'll get used to them.
Okay.
Okay, Daniela, how about you? How many did you get right?
4, teacher.
4. Okay, cool. Yes, pretty good. How about you, Shadia?
3.
3. Okay, we're averaging between 3 and 4. Okay, that's pretty good. How about you, Jasmine?
Also 3.
Okay, cool. So we're averaging between 3 and 4. So yeah, we just need a bit more of practice, basically. So yeah, we basically saw that some of the words can be quite misleading. So yeah, just be careful with those. So Karen, I think you're back.
Yes, teacher. Thank you.
So So we're going to begin then with our listening practice. So this is a lecture on geology, right?
Teacher, we can hear the lecture.
Part of a lecture in a geology class.
You'll recall that soil erosion is a process where soil is worn away over time. We've looked at the ways the wind can move soil, pull it apart, blow it away. Now I'm going to tell you about some of the ways that rainwater can erode soil. Remember, soil is very loose, gets very soft when it's wet. So water can have a real impact. There are a few different types of soil erosion caused by rain. Water behaves a little differently for each type of erosion, and the effects are different. For some context, let's consider bank erosion first. This kind of wearing away of the soil happens along the banks of rivers and streams, hence the name. The soil nearest to the water loosens up and starts to wash away. Plants growing in the soil come loose too. Grass, bushes, even trees can eventually fall into running water. If you look at the edge of a river, you can notice this. The way that the land along the river seems to hang out over the water with the current under the edge of the land. This is because the soil beneath the bank has been eaten away. The effects of this are pretty clear. I'm sure you can all picture it well enough. The first significant stage of rain erosion is a bit harder to spot. We call it. This process happens more slowly. It'll happen on land erosion. This process happens more slowly. It'll happen on land that's sloped, slanted in one direction or another. As gravity pulls rain down a slope, the rain grabs some soil, takes it along for the ride. Hills will seem more sandy than level ground because they've lost some of their soil to sheet erosion. But this effect happens even on land that's just a little tilted. It just happens more slowly. It can take years to really make a difference, but eventually it really does. Very gradually, rain will strip away the soil and pull it to the bottom of the slope, and the higher land will become sandy. Plants will start to struggle and die off. Sheet erosion really only happens on slopes that are smooth, so that the rainwater flows in one big sheet, flows evenly across the whole slope. This doesn't really leave room for that bank erosion I mentioned earlier. It's just an initial stage, but once the slope is a little more bumpy, with uneven soil, erosion will happen less evenly too. When it rains, water will naturally flow through the lowest, smoothest path on the slope. It'll flow around the bumps. In other words, and form tiny streams. Not real streams, just little paths of flowing rainwater. These flows are called rills. Soil from the higher parts of the land can get washed into the rill a little, but most of the erosion happens to the soil that's directly in the rill's path. This soil gets washed away to lower ground, and the rill erosion makes a sandy path through the surrounding dirt, a path you can see even when it's not raining. Rills can change the shape of an open surface. As the soil's pushed forward, big lumps of it can form in the rill and not move all the way down the slope. So the rill will have new, different bumps to flow around the next time it rains. A rill can change its path completely eventually. On the other hand, sometimes it doesn't change all that much, just goes along pretty much the same path every time it rains. Rills can get really deep if that happens, widening at the same time, via the bank erosion process I mentioned earlier. They can develop into a more dramatic groove that's all sand and no soil. Kind of looks like a dry riverbed. A big reel like that is called a gully. Gully erosion can really mess up a piece of land. Pull the soil away from the land in large strips so that big pieces of land are no longer plant friendly at all. There are actually more types, but it's these that we'll need to understand the process, the progression toward barren land made when soil is left vulnerable to the effects of rain. Farmland between harvests, deforested expanses, unless they're covered and protected, the soil will start moving.
Okay, perfect. So that's the end of the lecture. I'm going to send you the question sheets for this one. Right. Okay, so I'm going to put the timer on for 6 minutes. And we can begin. Right, so we're a bit more than halfway there. So we have 2 minutes and a half. All right, one more minute. All right, that's time's up. Sorry. Right, cool. So we're going to begin with the question sheet. I'm going to start sharing it. Yeah, there we go. Wait. Sweet. Right, so who wants to begin? Who wants to do the first one?
Maybe A.
Okay, yeah, who said it? I couldn't see you.
Karen.
Right, got it. So option A, why?
Because he talked about different type of erosion, the bank
Okay,
erosion and others, and talk about the effect of water too.
Okay, yeah, but
the word comparison, maybe.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
So do you want to give it another shot? Perhaps a different guess.
D.
Okay, D. Why?
Because talk about the effect of erosion with water, the effect in the plants and others, maybe.
So is it B or D?
D.
D, the last one, right?
Yes.
Perfect. So yeah, so actually that was a really good guess because the first one, and I was going to say comparison was the tricky word. So you actually got it, and it's good that you realized it. So that means we're making progress. So yeah, it was a really good guess. Sweet. So okay, who wants to do the next one? Shadia, do you want to help us?
I'm check my answer. I think that's B. Soil that or running water gets washed away.
So soil that touches the running water gets washed away. Don't forget that you have to choose two options. So you chose option B.
Okay.
And which else? That one was actually correct. So yeah, here don't forget to read this part. You have to choose two answers. So which is your next answer?
Okay, the option A. I
Why?
think because it makes me more sense, but I'm not sure.
It's perfect. Yeah, it was great. Great. Yes. So basically what they mentioned is the effects of bank erosion are those two. So yeah, the correct answers are A and B. Thank you very much, Shadia. That was awesome. All right, cool. Who wants to do number 3? Jasmine?
Okay, teacher. I choose letter A.
Okay, why? All right, so here, just make sure that we talked about plants, but that's on bank erosion. That was a great answer for the previous one. This one we're talking about sheet erosion. So yeah, just be mindful of that. Do you want to change your guess, perhaps? Jasmine, can you hear me? Jasmine?
Yes, teacher, sorry. My internet is very slow.
Okay, yeah, so I was telling you that, yeah, option A actually fits more bank erosion than sheet erosion. So just be mindful of that. Perhaps if you want to change your guess.
Maybe it's letter C.
C?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So you are actually closer with the first guess because it has something to do with plants and their survival, but doesn't necessarily talk about nutrients. So it just says that it affects its likelihood of surviving. So actually, the correct answer was option B. So yeah, just be really careful. Here, when they say they will be pulled to the bottom of the slope, they're actually referring to bank erosion. So just be careful of that. Right, cool. So, Jose, could you help me with the next one, please?
Okay, I will guess option C.
Okay, why?
I don't know, because the lecture said that the shapes of the river change every time.
Right, but here the key word is formed. So when you talk about change their paths, you're talking about changes in the reels that already exist. So here, don't forget that the keyword is formed.
Okay. So I will change letter A.
Okay. Yeah, because it makes more sense, right?
Yeah.
Because this one talks about the origin of streams, and this one talks about less likely to happen. So it doesn't actually. It mentioned that there's less there's a smaller likelihood of happening. So actually, the only one that makes sense in this context is option A. So yeah, just be careful of that one. So if the question asks for formation, just choose the one that makes sense. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Camila, do you want to help me with the next one? Camila?
Sorry, teacher, my mic was off. I think it's letter B because in the lecture they talk about the characteristics of the land, and that way I think it's that one.
Okay, but I think when the land is exceptionally steep, it's referring to a different kind of erosion. So you have to remember this is gully erosion. think this one is for sheet erosion, right?
You're right.
So it has
I don't know. Yes, I get confused. I don't know.
All right, so gully erosion has actually quite a lot to do with the previous question.
I don't know, teacher. Can someone answer, please?
Okay. So yeah, just be careful in your notes in this one that because they mention different kinds of erosion. Just whenever you're taking notes, just basically write all of them. It's sometimes hard because you don't know how they are spelled, but if you just write it down so that you can understand how it sounds like when you see it, it'll be easier. So here, actually, the correct answer was option C, because gully erosion has a lot to do with those rills that form in the shapes of the different shapes of the soil, right? So yeah, just another trick you can use is the word gully. Gully means yeah, it's like kind of like a U shape. So yeah, that can also be helpful as well. So yeah, just be careful with your notes. Okay. Thank you, Camila. And we'll close with Daniela.
It's letter A.
Letter A, why?
Because she means that even though you cannot see the changes immediately, it doesn't mean they are not there.
Yeah, perfect. That's the correct answer. Thank you very much. And yeah, actually, if you realize this last one was a bit better than the previous one. So yeah, just those tricky words can be quite challenging sometimes. All right, so I'm going to launch the poll now before we finish today's session. So while you answer, is there any question or are there any comments that you want to address, or perhaps something that you want to discuss before we finish today's session?
Teacher,
Yep.
where we can find more tapes to practice?
Yeah, I have some resources. I'm going to check because some of them have passwords. So I'm going to check some of them. But yeah, if you Google TOEFL listening practices, there are actually even some on YouTube that you can look to. I think Best My Practice is also really interesting, but it only gives you like a 7-day free trial. So yeah, I'm going to look for my resources, and I'm going to send you some links throughout the next couple of days. Okay, but remind me of that, because I forget sometimes. I think I still owe you the ones for the reading part, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, I'm quite forgetful, so please remind me of that. So I'm going to send you both the reading and the listening one, so you can practice a bit more. Just remember.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, sweet. So yeah, just practice, and yeah, tomorrow I'll be sending those links on our group chats. And yeah, if you have any questions, or you want to practice a bit more, or you have some questions, you know, you can also book the one-on-one calls. You have right to 12, I think, 2 per week. So yeah, just make sure you use those resources.
Teacher, I have a question. Can we
Yep.
take more than 2 calls per week?
Yep.
Or not?
So
Yeah?
you have 12 in total, and you can use
Okay.
them however you want. You want
Okay.
to. So yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, all good. All right. Any more questions before we finish today's session? All right, sweet. So I'll let you all enjoy your weekend. You can check the recordings as well for this practice, and I'm going to send you the resources tomorrow. Okay. All right.
Thank you, teacher. See you.
Thank you all
See
for
you
coming.
Bye,
Have a nice
teacher.
weekend. See you on Tuesday.
on Tuesday. Bye.
Bye bye.